Stay tuned. Coming up on this episode, I interview Brentwood Fire Department Battalion Chief Brian Collins as he shares a story about how he almost died when the door on his apparatus that he was riding on opened unexpectedly while responding to a call. But first, let's pay the bills. Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com. Hello and welcome to episode 286 of the Situational Awareness Matters show. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this program is to help improve situational awareness and high-risk decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-stress, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from my office in St. Paul, Minnesota, having just returned from conducting a situational awareness program for industrial workers at the Safety Plus Conference in New Orleans, Louisiana. Today's feature segment is brought to you by SimsUshare. SimsUshare is a simple and affordable way to help develop and practice situational awareness skills. You can quickly build sims from your photos to simulate almost any kind of incident, including active threat scenarios. And the new SimsUshare Command Training Center now lets you conduct multi-company drills over the internet. So you can even run drills while your companies stay in station. Check them out at SimsUshare.com. All right, let's jump into today's feature segment, my interview with Brentwood Fire Department Battalion Chief Brian Collins, as he shares a story about how he almost died when the door in his apparatus he was riding on unexpectedly opened while he was responding to a call. Hey everyone, Rich Gassaway here, host of the Situational Awareness Matters show, and I'm with Brian Collins, a battalion chief with the Brentwood Fire Department in Tennessee. And I, in preparation for FRI, sent out a message that I was looking for people that might be willing to sit down and have a conversation with me about near-miss events. And Brian reached out to me and said I had one and I'd be willing to be interviewed. So he's taking time away from the conference to give to us to have a chance to learn some lessons about his near-miss event. So, Brian, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Glad to have you.
Sure.
Let's start out by talking a little bit about your background in the fire service, where and when you got started, whether it was with Brentwood or somewhere else, then at what point maybe, if it was somewhere else, that you come to Brentwood and
Sure.
kind of bring us your career up to the progression. Because 10 years ago, that when this event occurred, you were a lieutenant, but now you're battalion chief, so some things have happened for you career-wise along the way. So
Sure. Yes, sir.
Bring us into the current day from the beginning.
Right. So 95 is when I graduated high school and turned 18 and immediately joined the local volunteer fire department in Cunningham, Kentucky. You don't know where Cunningham is unless you're specifically going there. That's not a pass-through town. So was there for a few years and then went to Eastern Kentucky University to school, finished my bachelor's degree, went to paramedic school, and then when that was completed, I hired on with the city of Brentwood, Tennessee, in 2002. Brentwood is a suburb of Nashville. It's immediately south of Nashville. It's a very affluent neighborhood. A lot of the country music industry lives there. A lot of professional athletes live there. Median home size is about 5,800 square feet, so we're big house neighborhoods. 4 stations currently, 66 line personnel. So we're running 4 engine companies, a rescue and a ladder, 3-person staffing on most everything except for the rescue. 3,600 calls a year, predominantly medical, just like the rest of the world. And not a whole lot of structure fires that go on there. The affluence kind of mitigates a lot of the socioeconomic factors that can contribute to that. So, but yeah, good department. We train a lot, have a lot of fun. So, relative to the career progression, started in 2002, promoted to driver I think in 2004, lieutenant shortly after that, Battalion Chief in 2013, and that's where I'm at today.
Okay. The call volume makeup, how does that split out based on?
So out of that 3,600 calls a year, about 65% of that are EMS. That's a little lower than the national average, primarily because most of the residences in our city have monitored fire alarms. So the percentage of residential fire alarms that we run is significantly higher than most other jurisdictions. And then once you get past that, the smaller percentages would be legitimate structure fires, car fires, serious auto accidents, things of that nature.
Okay. Let's go back to 2008 when your near-miss event occurred, and tell me about kind of the setup for that day. What kind of day was it? Busy day, slow day? What you were riding on and your position, and how the setup for how this this event occurred.
So I was the lieutenant on our engine 1, it's our busiest engine. Responds out of our headquarters station. Front right seat occupant, which is typical of most company officers, but the call occurred mid-morning. There wasn't anything particularly interesting or abnormal about the day. The dispatch information was for a motor vehicle accident, and again, there wasn't a lot of detail provided on the MVA other than the road that it was on. We had some significant crashes in that area before, so we're just kind of perked up with that. But as is the policy for most places, when we're responding to an MVA, we're wearing all of our turnout gear. So we bunked out, get in the truck, and leave the station. Again, not anything out of the ordinary at all. We make a left out of the station and go a few blocks to where we have to make another left. We had the green light approaching that intersection, and as the apparatus operator starts to make the left, I had adjusted in my seat, and I was wearing my seatbelt, obviously, hopefully. And I had adjusted in my seat to reach up for the MDT or something, and when I did that, the large pocket on the right side of my bunker pants caught the door handle of the apparatus door as we're making the left-hand turn. So whenever I adjusted, the pocket pulls the handle and the door comes flying open as we're going left onto from Maryland Way onto Granny White Pike. So as this happened, of course, my pucker factor increases significantly.
You think?
Yeah. And I immediately reached for the door. The apparatus operator, he starts hitting the brakes. So I was able to grab the door and pull it closed before any of the equipment fell out. And you got to remember, 10 years ago, we weren't securing helmets. We weren't as focused on keeping things secure in the cab. So there was a lot of stuff on the dash that was moving, and luckily nothing went out the door. Had I not been wearing my seatbelt, I feel pretty confident that I would have went out. I mean, you feel that the seatbelt tighten up when my weight shifted to the right. So once I grabbed the door and got it shut, we all kind of looked at each other wide-eyed like, holy cow, and proceeded on to the MVA, which really turned out to be nothing. But that was just kind of an aha moment, for me, especially. You don't think about your pocket catching a door handle. You think I'm doing all the right things here. I'm wearing all my PPE. I've got my seatbelt on. My driver wasn't driving particularly fast. Weather conditions were normal. All of the normal things that you would think may be a contributing factor to a near miss or to a firefighter injury or death. Like, oh, we're good. And then something small as my pocket caught the door handle. So, as far as lessons learned, there wasn't really much that we could figure out to do in terms of an engineering solution for that. You can't actively move the door handle or other than just really paying attention to where you're at in the seat and where your pocket is, and if the flap is over the top or tucked inside or whatever the case may be. So kind of get your heart rate up when the door comes open.
At some point, did you and your crew have some conversation about what happened there?
Yes, sir. After the call was over and we get back to the station, of course, they were, the firefighter and the driver were like, "What happened? What was?" So we all sat down in the seat, or I had them sit down, and we talked through the fact that, the pocket was open. It happened to catch that door handle just right. It was one of the square type door handles where the opening of the handle is actually towards the front of the vehicle, and you would grab it and pull this
back.
way. Yes, sir. So, it was just an awareness thing at that point, just saying, "Hey, look at what happened. Look at how this happened." And when you're in that seat, make sure that your pants aren't getting caught on the door handle.
And what is there any process by which that near miss gets shared across your organization to other shifts and other stations?
Yes, sir. So, and I don't know exactly when we started this specifically, but we kind of adopted the national near miss system and mirrored a local reporting system. So it remains anonymous, but our guys can put information into this database. It's an access database that I helped build, and that allows our local leadership and decision makers to review these near misses as they occur, as opposed to them being reported to a national database. They may never even know about it or hear that it happened. So there's a number of things that can come out of that from a local perspective: equipment related issues, training related issues, whatever. If you can identify patterns in your department and address those at a local level, that helps out a bunch. That system has since evolved. We now have unwanted incident reports, I think is what they're called. So anytime there's damage or potential damage without injury, then our guys will fill out a report, and it gets shoved up the food chain, and our safety committee reviews it and makes recommendations based on the details.
And then are those recommendations shared down through the organization, or just with administration? Or
typically what happens is when those reports are reviewed by the safety committee meets quarterly, I believe. They'll put together like minutes or a report based on their meeting and push that out to the organization saying, "Hey, here's what we talked about. Here's some of the events that have happened. Here's our recommendations to prevent it from happening again." Things of that nature.
And back in 2008, was it the culture of the Brentwood Fire Department for people to wear their seatbelts? I mean, was it pushed? Was it enforced? Would the driver not put the vehicle into motion if everyone wasn't belted, or the officer had that kind of ownership? Or at that, I guess what I'm saying is, at that time, were there any, and you might be guessing on this, but any apparatus in Brentwood where maybe somebody wasn't wearing their seatbelt back then? I mean, it might be more prevalent now, but what about then?
I would not be surprised 10 years ago to find out that we had people responding on units that weren't wearing their seatbelts. The fire chief at that time was a huge proponent of wearing your seatbelts, to the point of job threats. If I find out you're not wearing your seatbelt, you're out, which was kind of a bold stance to take then. But the engineering wasn't built into the apparatus that we were using then. That was on a 97 model truck, so it's not like there were beepers going off saying, "Hey, the seatbelts aren't on," or anything like that. So it was really incumbent upon the company officer to make sure that their folks were wearing those.
Mm-hmm.
My group that I came in with, kind of a younger generation, we were more used to wearing our seatbelts than some of the older guys on the department. So for us, it was just normal. You just put it on. Just like when I get my personal vehicle, I'll sit in the seat, you click the belt. It's just habit. Mm-hmm. So, for our crew at that time, wearing your seatbelt was a normal. You don't think about it, you just do it.
Yeah.
It's just a habit. But
what would you say to those firefighters out there? And they're out there even to this day. I talk to them, that they say, "Well, I can't wear my seatbelt because I got to get my SCBA on. I got to do this, and the seatbelt gets in the way, and I can't, the seatbelt encumbers me, and we've never been in a wreck, so we're never going to be in a wreck." And I would guess out there, Brian, there are maybe, of all the potential listeners, only a handful who have ever cut a pocket on a door handle and the door opened.
Sure.
It's such a low frequency event that I'm guessing there are a bunch of people out there in their denial mindset saying, too bad for him, unlucky event, it's not something that I have to worry about. So to all of that, what would you say?
The entire reason that we have seatbelts is for that oddball event, right? That's why we have any number of safety factors, is to catch that one-off that we're not thinking about. If it's something and it seems simple, but if it's something as simple as stopping in an intersection, you can control that. Every time you come up to an intersection, you stop before you proceed. Well, if we did that every time, then we know that we can control that situation. But seatbelts, in terms of what we're talking about right now, therefore that one-off, that random event that you didn't foresee happening, that you didn't predict happening, like catching a door handle with your pocket, or like somebody else running an intersection control device that you weren't planning on. So as good as you think you may be, it's not about you all the time. You can't control everybody else. You can't control every other possible circumstance. So wear them. I understand the thought process of, I have to be ready to go to work as soon as we pull up on the scene, and I have to be, okay, that's fine. Practice your pre-departure routine when you're getting in the truck. Do whatever you got to do to get your pack straps on earlier, before you move, or practice what you're doing after you arrive on the scene, taking the seatbelt off and then putting them on. Get that muscle memory built in as a part of your normal daily action, as opposed to trying to circumvent your safety or the safety of everybody else. The well-being of your family, for that matter, if you want to continue it that far. Just because you say, I got to be ready when I get there. Well, there's other ways to be ready when you get there.
Yeah. Where in the timeline did you stop to give any thoughtful consideration to how this outcome might have been different if your seatbelt wasn't on? Was that while you were still going to the call, or were you still focused on the call? At some point, I think you had to have this little internal conversation with yourself about how lucky you were.
No, absolutely. We all had those events, whether it was job-related or not, where you have that, oh crap moment that, that was almost really bad. And you have that adrenaline dump where you're like, that was sickening. And that's kind of what we experienced, or I experienced, between that event and the call. And then you get to the call, and thankfully it wasn't anything significant. So I did think about that later. If we had experienced that event as it happened, the near miss, then from the point of the event to the call, that's what I was thinking about. Holy cow, I almost fell out of the truck. I could have been dead. And then had we arrived and that been a legitimate technical extrication that required a lot of focus and a lot of attention, my mind wasn't in that game at that point.
Right.
I was still trying to recover from the old crap that we experienced on the way there. So thankfully that call wasn't a big deal.
Were you shaken?
Yeah,
physically shaken.
Yeah, for a little bit. Yeah. You just completely.
I'm almost shaking just thinking about me being in that situation.
Yeah, no, and the same thing with the driver. He was wide-eyed, like, oh my gosh, because as an apparatus operator, you feel responsible for the people that are in your truck.
Right.
So, the firefighter in the back was riding backwards. I don't think he actually understood what was happening when it happened. We had to explain it to him afterwards, but
you probably heard the door close. Probably didn't hear it open, but he probably heard you pull it.
He heard a loud expletive and then the door slam. Yeah.
Did you? We didn't talk about family, and some people don't like to talk about family publicly, but I'm curious, did you have any conversation with anyone who was important in your life at that time, be it parents, siblings, significant other, whatever? Did you go home and say, hey, funny thing happened to me today at work, and I'm lucky to be here? Did you have that conversation with anybody, or did you just kind of hold that quiet to yourself?
No, I don't remember specifically having that conversation, but I'm sure I did. My kids at the time were really super young, so it's not like I sat down and said, Daddy almost got tossed out of the truck today. I didn't have that discussion with them, but.
Did you have a special hug for him when you got home after shift?
Sure. You think about that, and especially when your kids are young. My kids at the time in 2008, they would have been 5 and 3. So, So you think, man, what would have happened if, obviously, even if I hadn't have died in an event like that, if you lose your ability to do my job.
Right, a traumatic brain injury that is career-ending. I'm assuming you didn't have your helmet on?
No, sir. No. I wasn't wearing a helmet, but the helmet's tucked up behind the...
Right.
It's a thousand wonders that we didn't lose equipment out the door at the same time. So here's your thermal imager or whatever.
Right.
And that kind of reinforced the desire to keep the equipment secured. You hear about you don't want to have a crash and have this stuff flying around and hitting people in the cab, which makes sense in theory, but I've never experienced a crash where stuff was flying around in the cab. But we did have this event where stuff could have gone out the door, so hey, now that makes sense. We need to secure our stuff.
Right.
Because none of that stuff's cheap. I don't care how affluent your department is. You don't want to throw your radios and thermal imagers and all that stuff out the door. So.
Right. So have you shared, along the way, this lesson with, somebody new comes onto your shift? Has this become one of those lessons within the department that is, a widely shared, this is why you wear your seatbelt kind of lesson for people coming in? Is it become part of the history of the department, or is it just an event that is passed and been forgotten?
We probably haven't used it to its full potential as a teaching point for newer people, and that's certainly something to consider. But the apparatus in question isn't in service anymore. We don't have any that have that style of a door handle anymore. Just so it's kind of to that point, it's kind of an afterthought. It's an anecdotal, hey, war story that we'll tell around the kitchen table on occasion. But no, we should probably certainly take more advantage of that.
Yeah.
Now that you say that.
Without getting too much into the detail, and you may know and you may not know this, but just very recently in Pennsylvania, in a town just not too far from Gettysburg, a firefighter was responding to an event, and the door opened and he fell out, and the outcome was much more tragic than yours. He was not seatbelted, and I was just having a conversation last night with somebody who's from the Gettysburg area, and he was telling me about, not knowing that I was going to be interviewing you today, he was telling me about, hey, did you hear about this tragic event that occurred in the community over from us? And I think I remember seeing an announcement about it, and he was giving me the details, and I said, oh my God. I said, how appropriate that just tomorrow I'm going to be interviewing someone who had a similar event. Now, when you and I had talked, and you said the door opened, and that was the near miss, I didn't know if you were seatbelted or not, because the guy asked me last night. He said, well, was he wearing a seatbelt? And I said, I don't know, I'll find out tomorrow. I said, but I don't know if he was, because we haven't done the interview yet. But this is still an ongoing, very significant potential event in the fire service. I mean, so much potential that just recently there was this tragic outcome where a firefighter was on this apparatus and the door opened and he literally fell out of the apparatus, unseatbelted.
Wow.
I might say. So the lessons of this is those, as you described them, I might not use the right term, those unusual type events, those one-off type events that can occur is why we want to be belted. Be it an accident. I don't think anybody ever responds to a call and says, today's the day we're going to get in an accident, because some crazy person's going to pull right out in front of our apparatus as we're responding to a call. I mean, we don't think that's ever going to happen to us and our apparatus. And how many thousands of calls we go to that we're never in an accident, we're never even in a close call accident, the door never opens up, and we can kind of get complacent to the belief that would ever happen to us. It might happen to other people who maybe drive more recklessly or do foolish things, but a lot of that really is out of our control.
Completely.
I mean, you didn't with intent do anything to create this which occurred to you, other than your pocket getting caught up on a door handle. That I would think that kind of design is probably, they found a way to engineer out that kind of design, but there's still a lot of fairly older apparatus out there that might have. I think of the door handle on my first ladder truck had kind of like you grab the handle and just pull down, kind of, like grab it like this and just pull down. And anything could have caught on that, because it was open on one end. It wasn't even closed. It wasn't even a closed-handled loop. It was open on one end. Anything could have caught on that and shifted that down, and that door would have opened. And what scares me most about that was that the vintage of that truck was such that we didn't have seat belts.
Oh, wow.
We didn't wear them. We didn't have them.
Right.
And as I think about that, that's what was flashing through my mind is have I ever had an apparatus that had a door handle that could have ever possibly happened to me? And I went, oh yeah, the first ladder truck. And then I went, holy cow, we didn't even have seatbelts on that truck. And it was an open cab.
Oh wow.
Talk about the age of the apparatus. It was a tiller drawn aerial. And it was open cab front and back. Well, of course, there's no door handles in the back. There was no door. I mean, you were out in the elements back there. But I think of that and how much potential that held for me as a firefighter. When we rode in the jump seat, the door was set off a little bit from us, so you had to actually step out and open the door. But in the officer's seat, I mean, we were right there with that drop-down door handle that we could have caught anything on.
Sure.
Even our hand, if the truck made an evasive mover and our hand come down, we could have popped that door open.
Yeah.
Man, that's scary.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would want to share with the listeners and viewers that you didn't get the chance to share because I didn't ask you the right question? Takeaways or advice?
Yeah, I mean, just try to avoid the "it'll never happen to me" mentality, because that's probably what most people that experience any sort of a tragic event, and we respond. That's what our job is to respond to people who have tragic events. We do this every day. That's why we go to work. And I mean, obviously, we can't hold those people, but it's like you talked about earlier. Nobody wakes up that morning thinking, "Hey, today's the day I'm going to have a heart attack. Today's the day I'm going to get in a crash. Today's the day that I'm going to do something silly and set my house on fire." All of those things are the events that they're not planning for, and we have to be prepared for the events that we're not planning for, so that we can continue to do our job. And the best way we can do that is to take full advantage of the safety devices and features that we have available to us. Wear your seatbelt. It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's super easy.
It's probably one of the easiest ways to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. And from a driver operator point of view, you're responsible for that truck and for the people on it. From an officer point of view, you got to be brave enough or smart enough or I don't know how you want to describe it, but it's 100% your job to take care of your people. We preach brotherhood. We preach, this family that the fire service is, and no more so than if you have young kids, you wouldn't think about driving down the road without making sure that they're secured in their car seats appropriately. Why would you want your brothers and sisters in your fire hall to drive down the road without being taken care of? So, toughen up if you have to. Have those difficult conversations if you have to, if it's not part of your normal fire department culture, and make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
the discussion of it adds time to me being able to get my pack on or to get out of the apparatus or what. I mean, we're talking about milliseconds, and if it's a problem, get in the bay and practice it, for crying out loud. It's simple. It's not hard.
Yeah,
it's not hard.
It's more of an excuse than a actual explanation for not wearing a seatbelt.
There is no explanation for not. There's no acceptable explanation.
Yeah.
For not. So.
Brian, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
For
Thank
taking
you very
time
much.
and sitting down and talking with me today. I appreciate your willingness to share the event and what you learned from it. And I think it's my first near miss of this type, so very valuable.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Battalion Chief Brian Collins, for your story that you shared with our listeners and viewers. The Situational Awareness Matters show was launched in 2014 with a purpose: to give a platform to those who've had near-miss events to share their stories, just like the one you just heard. When I'm on the road delivering situational awareness classes, I often ask attendees about their near-miss events, and they have shared with me some amazing stories. These stories motivated me to launch this podcast in the first place, so those lessons learned could be shared with a bigger audience, you. The Situational Awareness Matters show, podcasted as SA Matters Radio, and our companion video program on the SA Matters TV YouTube channel, along with other videos we have posted there, have enjoyed over 800,000 downloads. I am so thankful for your support. I feel so honored to be able to provide a platform for these amazing stories to be shared. If you like the show, please consider doing me a solid favor. Subscribe. For the audio version of the show, search for SA Matters Radio on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, or iHeartRadio. For the video version, subscribe to SA Matters TV on YouTube. And if you find value in the show, I would really appreciate it if you would give the show a rating and write a review. Your ratings and reviews help others to find the show, and more importantly, your feedback inspires me to work even harder for you.
I think Rich's ability to connect with any crowd, that's a gift that he has, and it's easily transferable.
This is the second or third time that I've heard him speak. There's some teeth to the information that he brings.
It's been really good. Good mixes. He knows when to throw in a joke here and there to get you back involved.
Some tools. I'm a new lieutenant, so very, very interesting. And some of these things I can take back to the station and use with some of the new firefighters I have on my crew.
Something to get you thinking about your job more, big picture type stuff. I've seen him before. A good review for sure.
I have heard him before, yes. After he speaks, there's usually an enlightenment because now they're more aware of what's going on around them and what they're experiencing as they respond to calls.
He's very, very knowledgeable. I'm enjoying it so far.
And that intuition, that's a big one. The video that you just showed up here, we're getting a lot out of this. I think this is a really good seminar, especially for new people and old. But I think it's very informative. This talk gives us more ammunition to do all three.
They're relatable to what we have experienced or very well could experience, so he makes it easy to let the knowledge sink in.
I mean, it's awesome. A lot of stories you can usually relate to yourself and calls you have been on, aha moment. Like, he just helps you focus on picking out the right things. It's awesome. It's a refresher and keeps my eyes open. It's good stuff.
If people listen to the message that he has, it's an incredible message delivered by a very compassionate person. Strategy and tactics are going to always change. Situational awareness it doesn't change. It's always there.
He's got some good stories to tell, and he's very thorough with his stories, and it's interesting listening to him.
Very clear speaker, and he talks on our level because he's been there, he's been in the trenches. I think he's doing well, and I'm looking forward to the second half.
Since 2007, Situational Awareness Matters instructors have helped more than 1,300 organizations and have trained more than 80,000 individuals to improve high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, public transportation operators, aviation workers, oil refinery process operators, and many, many more. If you or someone you know works in a high-risk, high-consequence decision-making environment, then we are here to help to improve your safety and your survival, and to help you accomplish the most important mission of all, and that is to go home to the ones who love you. I'd like to take a moment to honor and thank the companies, organizations, agencies, and departments that have hosted recent Situational Awareness Matters training for their team members. The Lansing Fire Department in Lansing, Michigan. The Ingham County Fire Chiefs Association, also in Michigan. The Coastal Bend Regional Advisory Council in Corpus Christi, Texas. And the Safety Plus Conference in New Orleans, Louisiana. I am now in the middle of a 6-week sabbatical from all presentations to, as Dr. Covey would say, sharpen my saw and focus on my personal growth and development. So I recorded this episode before I left. If you're interested in attending an upcoming event, here's where we're going to be on the horizon when I get back from my sabbatical and back to work. October 15th, I will be at the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association Conference in Peoria, Illinois. On October 19 and 20, I will be at the Clearwater Regional Fire Service in Rocky Mountain House, Alberta. And on November 14 through 17, I will be at the International Association of Fire Chiefs Volunteer and Combination Officer Section Symposium in the Sun in Clearwater Beach, Florida. And on November 23rd, I'll be at the County of Grand Prairie Fire Services in Grand Prairie, Alberta. If you want to see the locations of all the upcoming events, just head over to the samatters.com website and click on the red tab as you scroll down the home page. There'll be a red tab saying Upcoming Events Schedule, and you'll see them all. If you're interested in hosting a program, just click on the Contact Us tab on the top of the samatters.com homepage, and I will give you a call. If you want to become part of the SA Matters community of learners, there's several ways you can do that. Check the show notes for how you can get connected with us by signing up for our monthly newsletter, by subscribing to the SA Matters radio podcast, by subscribing to the SA Matters TV YouTube channel, and how to follow us on the social media channels of Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. There we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 286 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you again to my guest, Brentwood Fire Department Battalion Chief Brian Collins. Thank you to our Platinum sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to our feature segment sponsor, SimsUShare. Thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. Thank you to all the companies, agencies, organizations, and associations that have hosted Situational Awareness Matters training programs. Thank you to all the organizations that have hosted the live stream training programs where I come to your organization live via the internet to train your employees. Thank you to the more than 3,000 students and graduates of the highly acclaimed Situational Awareness Matters online academy. The feedback I've received from academy graduates is just amazing and humbling, and I thank you for that. Most importantly, though, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really do appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gassaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gassaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgassaway.com.